You already mentioned it, Christina and Mary, trigger warnings. There will be a trigger warning in this conversation that we are going to have, most notably because of 2005. I'll explain that later. Those of you who are hardcore Astro fans know what I'm going to reference later on when we get there. But just be warned, I know it's like a Gen Z thing to be triggered and all this stuff, but it's not going to be as bad as you think. And the reason for that is because I have been blessed with so many unique opportunities throughout the course of my career. And that's why I'm here to talk about the importance and value of all of you in this room and what you mean to Chicago Title. Having played on a lot of ball clubs, having to serve in a lot of different roles, the value of everybody in here is what makes it important and what made my experience here with Chicago Title great as well. So every team has their superstars. Every team has their high earners. Some have greater responsibilities than some, but it doesn't diminish the value you bring to their responsibilities and their responsibilities bring to you. So never forget that. And having been through a lot of situations in my career, I've become an expert on knowing and recognizing roles, but the idea of trying to maximize the opportunity from what some may say is an unfavorable position. And yes, there are some unfavorable positions in all of our jobs. Every corporation has it. But it doesn't mean that you play down to that level or you play down to that label. The label is just something they've got to write on a paycheck or something they've got to put on your desk to say this is who this person is and this is what they're going to do. I didn't know how to handle this until I heard a song, and I actually listened to it on the way over. I'm not too sure how many people are familiar with punk rock, heavy metal. I'm a little into that genre, having gone through the grunge era growing up. But there's a band called Helmet, and they had a song called Unsung. And the first lyric in that song is, "Your contribution left unnoticed." And it kind of struck me as I'm going through my career. I didn't hear that song until I was in the big leagues, but it kind of struck me a little bit, and it gave me an anthem when I was driving home after some of these games, realizing that sometimes, even though I did my job, it went unnoticed. So all kidding aside, find that anthem. If it helps you get home and get home in a better mood, go ahead, crank that thing up, let it rip, and vent a little bit while you're in that car. Trust me, it works. But I did not learn how to handle some of these situations of being that unsung or having maybe not that superstar role until I got to the big leagues. And that's what's crazy about it. We got to go back in time a little bit and take a trip back to Southern California where I grew up. I grew up just 30 minutes east of LA in a city called Chino. Believe it or not, I could have grown up in cowboy boots in California because Chino was an agricultural city with dairy farmers everywhere. Yes, I have been cow tipping, believe it or not. I'm not sure I should brag about that, but I'm trying to relate to the Houstonian lifestyle, maybe just a little bit. But how do you get there? When I was younger, I found out early on that I was a very good athlete. I always had the height, but I also had a lot of speed when I was growing up. And I kind of found my niche. And this is before club baseball. This is before all of these travel teams and things like that. We didn't have select teams. So I was afforded the opportunity, and I highly recommend playing multiple sports. Played basketball, soccer, ran track. Didn't play football because at the time when I was growing up, I was a little wiry. I turned sideways, you'd lose me. Didn't have the muscle mass to go out there and really kind of play some football, so it was just primarily those sports. But I found a good group of guys. We would bounce around from sport to sport. Our families were our coaches, and they're how we got to some of the practices. But I soon found that maybe about 12 years old that I was the guy. I was a guy. I had another buddy of mine who I'm still friends with to this day, played 12 years in the major leagues. I played with another guy on that same team in my 12-year-old year, was offensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs for about 3 or 4 years. And then I had another guy that got a cup of coffee with the San Diego Chargers as a tight end. So we had some good guys. But at the same time, I was the starting shortstop. I was the guy that was hitting second in the lineup. I knew I was a guy. I knew that there was a responsibility to me to be the leader on the team, in the sense of that when it came down to it, I had to be the guy that stepped up in the middle of these games. And you proceed to go through and get to the high school level, and I'm playing basketball and baseball in high school. freshman MVP on the high school basketball team, junior varsity the next year, my sophomore year, MVP. And while I'm playing basketball, I'm also playing baseball. And I was lucky enough to make the team as a freshman. I was a freshman on the varsity team, me and a buddy of mine. That was all fine and dandy. I didn't play a lot because there were guys that, I was 15 years old, 14, 15 years old, and there were guys that were 18, 19 on that team. So I just kind of sat back and said, I'm going to let these guys do what they need to do. And as luck would have it, or as God would have it, he put me in a position in a semifinal game before our state 6A championship, where I had to go in and play third base, which I had never played in my life, made the game-losing error, and I still have guys on Facebook that remind me of that. And I come back with the 05 story. But it all works out. It was something I learned from, and from my sophomore year to my senior year, I was the starting shortstop again. I was hitting in the third spot. Everybody looked to me and said, oh my gosh, it's going sideways. Jeff, what do we do, kind of thing. And I had always become that guy. I'd always been the guy that would just kind of stand up in the situation and say, boys, let's go. And then I get through my junior, senior year, and I'm getting recruited. I'm getting the phone calls. The scouts are showing up at the games. And remember, I'm maybe an inch shorter than I am now, but I'm about 70 pounds lighter. I'm like 6'3", weigh $160 on my driver's license. I'd have to eat a full lunch and dinner and then wet myself down to get to like 165. So I'm not getting a lot of notice as far as professional baseball is concerned. I'm getting noticed because the talent is obviously there. I've got great numbers, I've got a skill set, and I've got size. But I just knew internally that I was not ready physically. I knew I wasn't ready mentally to be shipped off into nowhere USA on my own and expected to go out and perform. So I kind of realized really early on that I was going to be a student athlete. Colleges started to send letters, questionnaires. I was getting them from SEC to ACC to, believe it or not, at the time I was going into college, the Pac-12 was half the size. They only had 6 baseball teams in their conference, which was actually a really good thing because we had superior competition compared to other conferences around the country because we had to play each team twice. It was the Arizona schools, Arizona State, Arizona. Then we had USC, UCLA, ourselves, and that school, Stanford. Yeah, that's Stanford school. But went in my freshman year, was challenged to learn how to switch hit, eventually did that. Was the starting shortstop for the California Golden Bears. I went to California, Berkeley. Was the starting shortstop at the age of 18 on our College World Series team. I had the unique opportunity to go play in the College World Series, which was phenomenal. If you get a chance to go watch that, even at the new stadium, go do it. It's an experience. It's something that I absolutely loved. It was actually the first time I had played on TV, and it was the first time my parents actually watched me play baseball outside of California. So it was kind of monumental. And a quick story about that, it sounds great when everybody announces me as Geoff Blum because you don't have to look at my name. Because if you looked at my name, you'd go, huh, that's different. I spell my name with a G. So we get to my freshman year, 18, digging in, parents in the stands, ESPN. I'm digging in. I'm like, man, I am awesome. I'm hitting ninth. But I dig in. Yeah, I'm holding on by a thread on that starting lineup. But I dig in, and there's a guy behind the plate named Charles Johnson. He played for the Miami Marlins forever, big leaguer, all-star. He was a stud in college. I knew it. I dig in. This gives you an idea of who I was at 18. I probably needed to be humbled a little bit. But I dig in. I look back. I'm like, CJ, good to see you, man. He looks at me like, who in the hell is this guy? And as I'm digging in, I get up there. I hear the announcer say, now batting for your California Golden Bears, number 11, Geoff Blum. Instant deflation. I was crushed. I hear CJ laughing. I proceed to go 0 for 6 in that game. It was a terrible day, but it was a great experience all the way around. And I know the question that nobody's willing to ask right now is, what was it like at Cal? And I survived. I did okay. My mom was severely concerned about me going to that school, but my coach said that he was going to protect me pretty well. And I can tell you I survived years of protests. I survived all the dumpster fires and the occasional naked rally. Needless to say, I learned a lot while I was at Cal, but it was a good time. And again, like I'm saying, I was the team captain. I was, at a Division I school, at a superior conference. I was the guy. I continued to be that guy. I was going to get drafted my junior year, and I did get drafted my junior year. I got drafted in the 7th round. Keep in mind, things are starting to trend a little bit. I'm not a first-round pick, not a second-round pick, third-round pick. I am a 7th-round pick. I get drafted by the Montreal Expos. Team doesn't exist anymore, for those wondering. I have to remind my daughters of this constantly. They're like, what team was that again, Dad? I'm like, it was the Montreal Expos. They're now the Washington Nationals. But I get drafted in the 7th round in 1994. And like I mentioned earlier, I wasn't ready at 18, but I was ready at 21. And of course, they shoot me off to Burlington, Vermont, literally 24 hours after I signed my minor league contract. So I take off, I go to Burlington, Vermont. I'm second in the league in hitting, playing shortstop. I've got, our manager is an ex-big leaguer. He's sending in great reports. I'm like on the fast track. I proceed to go to Australia to play in their winter league. I come back, I skip a level. I don't go to low A ball, I go to high A ball, which is in Florida, the Florida State League in West Palm Beach. Oddly enough, where the Astros now have their spring training. So I've got a lot of memories. Some of my old haunts, thankfully, are not there anymore. But I go to A-ball next year. That off season, I go, you're going to love this, I went and played in the Hawaiian Winter League. Yes, it is as good as it was. Yes. Paid vacation and playing baseball. It was really good. Come back, go to Double-A. I'm starting to play with guys like Vladimir Guerrero, Sr., Jose Vidro, some of these other guys that end up in the big leagues. So you're kind of figuring out that this, I'm on the trajectory I need to be to get to the big leagues. And again, I'm playing shortstop every single day. I'm hitting in the middle or the top of the lineup every single day. That off season, I go to the Arizona Fall League, which is a prospect league. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it with all the Astros and their prospects. They play in Arizona still to this day. It's very prestigious. You get a lot of eyes on you. And then I go to AAA for my first year in 1996. I end up turning double plays with a couple of managers that are now in the big leagues. And I'm going, okay, I'm all right. I'm in AAA. I'm one step away. Still playing shortstop. Still hitting in the top of the lineup. Didn't have the great year. Spent that off season at home. Came back in 1997 was my first year in AAA. Come back 1998. I go into the season, I'm like, okay, make or break, we got to make this happen. I vividly remember we are in Syracuse, New York, and I step onto the field preparing for the game. We're playing catch, warming up. I hear and I'm like, what in the heck was that, man? It was just a big pop in the back of my elbow. And I kind of look, I don't see much swelling, and I can still kind of bend it a little bit. I continue to play catch, and I actually finish playing the game. Wake up the next day, it looks like somebody lodged a softball into the back of my elbow, and I can't brush my teeth. And I'm like, oh dear God, this is not the time that I need something like this to happen. I have bone chips, loose bodies in my right elbow. I'm with the Montreal Expos, and I'm playing in Ottawa, Canada. I had to wait 3 weeks, I think, to get an MRI. Because at the time, there was an MRI machine in Toronto, there was an MRI machine in Montreal, and I had to wait to get my MRI, oddly enough. It's kind of crazy to think about. But I get the MRI, loose bodies, eventually have surgery. It takes me a good month and a half to rehab and get back. I went from prospect to suspect that year because I started at AAA, I was injured, and you guys have heard about the rehab process. You got to kind of bounce from level to level to get back to where you were at. I never got back to where I was at. I spent a lot of time in the Florida State League. Keep in mind, I'm 25 years old at the time, 24 years old at the time. I'm much older than a lot of these guys, but I'm fighting my way back. I have good games, I have bad games. I eventually only get back to Double-A. I finished the season a level lower than I started. And that's when I go into my 1999 year. And what was interesting about that offseason in 1999 was you kind of have to reevaluate things. and I was 25. I spent 3 years at Cal. The way my contract worked out is that they were going to pay for my school when I went back. So, and I mean, relationships are going sideways. I don't know what my future's looking like. So I kind of pulled the plug on a lot of things and actually moved back home with my parents. Fortunately for them, they took me in, and I proceeded to kind of work on me. I got in great shape. I had a great regimen. I was probably in the shape of my life. I met my future wife that off season, and believe it or not, I actually got an invite to big league camp. So I'm showing up into big league camp in 1999. And over that off season, like I said, I'm in shape, but I had to make so many swing adjustments because I was not going to make it the way I was playing. I realized that. I had to make the adjustment. So I'm tinkering. I finally find something that I feel like is working for me. And I get my first big league invite, which is great, just a letter in the mail. I mean, it wasn't a phone call. We didn't have cell phones at the time. It's crazy. Snail mail. I open it up. Oh, I'm going to the big leagues. And I'm elated. I'm finally like, after 4.5 years in the minor league, or 4 years in the minor leagues, I'm going, man, I got a chance to make an impression. I'm stoked. I'm exhilarated. I'm beyond excited to show up to spring training. And I show up early. I get in there, I'm opening the door to the clubhouse. There's 70 guys in this clubhouse, and I'm looking around. I see my nameplate. I walk over and I pull out the jersey, number 83. You talk about a punch in the throat. I'm going, dude, number 83. And I'm looking around, I'm like, how come that guy has his name on the back of his jersey? I have no name on the back of my jersey. I'm just a number. I showed up, and I am now the wide receiver for the Montreal Expos. And that's when reality became real. You know, you go through big league camp. I feel like I'm playing well. I'm getting a chance to play shortstop late in some of these games like you watch when I'm broadcasting. There's a reason that I try to remember or pronounce everybody's name as well as I can, because I used to be Geoff Blum. And I want these kids, when they get their chance on a big league TV, to be able to have their name pronounced right. And with social media, I don't want any parents tweeting at me or Instagram, DMing me, telling me how to pronounce it. So I left a really good impression. I had a lot of fun. I played well. I got along with the guys on the team. The coaches liked me. And I had flashes of, maybe this guy could do something. But at the time, that team was it was pretty well established. We had a very good team. We didn't win a lot of games, but I knew we were talented. But I get sent back to AAA. I went right up to the last day. When the team left for Montreal, I left for Ottawa. So it was a little, it was good and bad at the same time. But truth be told, I had actually been in contact with counselors at Cal because I was like, I'm 25. I don't know what my resume is going to look like, and I don't know if I can be a 27-year-old washed-up ball player trying to get back into the workforce. So I had actually been in contact with counselors at Cal, and I was getting ready to go back to school that fall. In August, I was going to go back to school. Started out good. The swing adjustments were all right. I started to hit with a little bit of power. Defense was a little shaky. That's a whole nother talking segment that I had. I got some great advice from a AAA coach that actually worked out, believe it or not. But I was playing really well. I was having the time of my life. You know, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was phenomenally supportive. And I get the opportunity to go play the AAA All-Star game in New Orleans. And we go down to New Orleans. We get to play in the All-Star game. And I actually hit a home run in that All-Star game. It was kind of cool. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with New Orleans, but they had a pool in right field. Normally, it's pretty cool to hit a home run into the pool. You know, it was one of the few stadiums before Arizona even existed with the pool out there in right field. Yeah, I hit it over it. It was good. I got it good, and I was pretty happy about that. And it was kind of funny. We went back. My wife and I, you know, we chose to walk the streets of New Orleans, and we took a big scoop out of one of those trash cans and learned what a hurricane was, real quick because we get through this thing. We get back to the hotel room, and I remember I'm flat on my back. My wife's getting ready for bed, and I'm just like, the world's spinning. I'm staring at the ceiling. The TV's on, and Sports Center comes on, and they're like, down in New Orleans, the AAA All-Star game is going off. Geoff Blum stepped up and hit one, and I'm like, what? I shoot up. I'm like, babe, I'm on TV. You know, and she's like, sure, have another hurricane. And she comes out, we watch this thing, and again, you know, it was on repeat back in the day, so we stayed up another hour. We're like, look, there it is, you know, just to kind of confirm it. And I remember waking up the next day. It was awesome. It was a good time. But I remember waking up the next day, and the thought went through my head, is this the peak of my career? I'm like, is this it? Because I'm kind of rolling through. It's mid-late July. The AAA season ends in August. And I'm like, man, that was awesome. I go, that's cool. I got to find a way to get that tape because that might be it. Things are starting to wind down, and my wife is with me, and it's August 8th of 1999, and we go to a theater in Ottawa watching the Thomas Crown Affair. And I come back, and there's a Post-it note sitting, and it says, Jim Beattie called. Now, I was rooming with a guy, a French Canadian who was going to the University of Ottawa in the basement of a host family's home. Really cool minor league like experience. And it says, call Jim Beattie. And I'm going, my wife's like, who's this Jim guy? I'm like, that's the GM of the Montreal Expos. And as I'm reading the Post-it note, the French Canadian guy, who I can barely talk to, is watching their version of Sports Center in French. So I don't know what they're saying. I mean, there's a couple of French words I've learned over the years in playing in Montreal, but I can't repeat them. I know what they mean because they were said to me quite a bit, but I'm not going to repeat them. And I'm watching, and I watched this guy, Orlando Cabrera was on the screen. He was the shortstop for the Expos at the time. Hits a ground ball, takes off running, hits first base, goes down. And I'm looking at the Post-it note, and I'm looking at the screen. I'm like, dude, this is it, man. I'm like, that dude just went down. I go, that's my position. Turns out Orlando broke his ankle that year, and that phone call, when I called Jim Beattie back, he said, you got to be on a train tomorrow. You are going to Montreal, and you're going to be a part of that ball club. Dream come true. 60 games left in the season. I show up. Felipe Alou was the manager at the time, pulls me in his office, and I don't know what to expect. I'm like, man, you probably got somebody else who's way better than me on this team already that can play some shortstop. I'm like, let him go. I just want to say that I put on a big league uniform. Now I show up, where's my locker? I go, look at my locker. I'm like, man, that's got to be better than 83, right? I go up there, pull out the jersey. I'm number 50. I'm like, yes, I'm a linebacker now. You know, it's like I'm starting to get back into this thing. So it's amazing. I'm like, all right, you know. I put the number 50 on. It's got my name on the back. I'm stoked. Felipe Alou calls me into his office, and one of the best managers. I didn't take it for granted when I played for him at the time, but it was after I got done that I actually can look back and say, oh my gosh, dude, this guy hooked me up big time. He pulled me in his office and he goes, oh, you know, you got called up because this guy got hurt. And I was like, no, dude, I got called up because I'm good. And he's like, no, he was like, you got called up, you know, this guy broke his ankle and we need a shortstop. So today you're gonna be playing shortstop. And I believe I was hitting 8th in that lineup. And went out there. I couldn't believe I was playing to begin with, but I mean, I could not. I didn't wear my own shoes because Ottawa, the team in Ottawa was the Lynx, more affectionately known as the Stinks. But we were black and silver. We looked like the Raiders with pinstripes, and the Montreal Expos are red, white, and blue. And I didn't have shoes. I had to borrow Michael Barrett's shoes. I had to borrow somebody's batting gloves. I had to, you know, I had minor league pro stock wood bats. I had to borrow somebody's bat. The only thing I had that was mine was my glove. So I go out there, didn't get a ground ball in the first inning, and then I come up to the plate, and I strike out against Matt Clement, and I come walking back to the dugout, and I'm like, what is that? There's guys on the bench looking at me going, what is wrong with this guy? They're like, Blummer, what'd you see? And I go, saw a curveball, struck me out. I go, dude, that was the nastiest curveball I've ever seen in my life. That was awesome, man. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. They thought it was nuts. I rolled up the next 2 at-bats, 2 doubles, 2 RBIs. And remember, I had grown up just east of LA, so a lot of my teams were the Dodgers, boo. Yeah, I have learned to hate them vehemently. And it began when I played with the San Diego Padres, just so you know. So this has been building for years, so I'm with you. Dodgers, Angels, and Padres. I watched a lot of their baseball games. And I'm playing shortstop. A buddy of mine, Jeremy Powell's throwing a complete game. We're winning. And it's the ninth inning. I haven't gotten one ground ball yet. I am dying. I'm going, come on, somebody hit me a ground ball. I'm freaking out here. I want a ball. I need to have a ball hit to me so I can kind of take the edge off a little bit. Guy coming to the plate is a guy named Tony Gwynn. 2 days before I got called up, he got his 3,000th hit. He proceeds to hit me a ground ball that hits the turf in Montreal. I would have rather have played in this conference room than what we had in Montreal. It hits a seam, hits me in the chest. Somehow it ends up in my glove. I step on second base. I throw it to first. Game over. So my first ground ball was a ground ball off the bat of Tony Gwynn to turn a double play to finish the game. It was incredible. And it was a great experience. And the beauty of that is that you kind of get to the point where you say, you know what, I can do it. I can play here. I ended up playing 60 games. I think I hit, I know I hit, come on, let's be honest.
Yes, I love it.
I know I hit 8 home runs in 130 at-bats, which is remarkable. Usually throughout the course of a season, you get about 600 at-bats. So if you do the math, it's kind of a big number. You're going, okay, this guy's got some power that plays at the big league level. And I knew that, management knew that, and I went into that offseason in 1999, going into Y2K, pretty confident. Maybe in myself more than computers, but everything worked out, and I'm in shape. I'm going back to big league camp because I'm actually on the roster at this point. But there was a lot of things that were kind of in flux. Remember I talked about the guy who broke his ankle, Orlando Cabrera. I showed up in spring training. He is 100% healthy. Where does that leave me? All I did when I was playing the year before, and most of the time coming up through the minor leagues, was playing shortstop. So that shortstop position is taken because Orlando is very good. He's won, by the end of his career, he won a couple of World Series championships, and we were very good friends, fortunately. I've been blessed to have great relationships with a lot of these guys, but the understanding was this guy is the starting shortstop for the Montreal Expos. Where does that put Geoff Blum? I knew I was good enough to play there, but how am I going to stay here? What is my role going to be? My role up until this point was the guy. I was the shortstop. I showed up every day. I said, I just nod at the manager and go out and play shortstop. But coming into spring training, it was different for me because I didn't know who I was. I knew who I wanted to be, but I didn't know who I was going to be. And that was probably the hardest thing for me, is I didn't know what I was going to do. So first day of camp, go out there. I'm standing right behind Orlando Cabrera, taking ground balls. Day 7, same thing. We start to play games, and he's the shortstop, and I'm coming in the 7th inning to relieve him. And I'm looking around, and I'm going, this can't be my only job, because this guy's going to play 150 games this year. What do I do? Do I play 12 games? Are they going to put me on the roster for that? So I had to kind of find out what my job was going to be. Felipe Alou calls me into his office, and I know this conversation's coming. It's either one of two things, like, how are you going to stay on the team, or number 2, you're going back to AAA. And I was like, dear God, I don't want to go back to AAA. Comes in, he probably thinks that he's presenting me an opportunity, but I'm pretty sure he had no idea what was actually going to transpire in the course of that conversation, because he said, I know you can play shortstop. Can you play second base? Fortunately, I fibbed just a little bit on that one. Because I think I played maybe a handful of games at second base, and I felt like moving from short to second was logical. It's up the middle, I can do it. And so I'm like, oh yeah, play second base, man, no problem. And I instantly knew that he had not tracked my career because he asked me that. So I'm like, okay, this guy has no idea what I did. He just thinks I'm a shortstop that could play it everywhere coming up through the minor leagues. And he goes, can you play third base? And I was like, oh yeah, of course, absolutely can play third base. I haven't played third base ever in my life except for that one time in high school when I made the error. But I was like, oh yeah, I'm your third baseman. You need a third baseman? I got you. He goes, can you play first base? Felipe, I'll be the best first baseman you've ever seen. Of course I can play first base. Can you play left field? Yeah, man, yeah, I can play some left field. Heck yeah. Dude, I lied through my teeth as boldly as I could because I had no idea what I was doing. I had every intention of trying to stay in the big leagues. And you'll hear it a lot from a lot of these guys. You know, what was the easiest, what was the hardest? The easiest thing is getting to the big leagues. You just play, beat up on a bunch of guys that are AA, AAA, get to the big leagues. The hardest thing is staying in the big leagues. But how do you stay in the big leagues? I wasn't a guy that was overly talented. I had talent, obviously, to get to that situation, but I didn't have the kind of talent that was going to put me in the 4 spot and overwhelm the game. I had the talent that was able to move around and be just average enough at short, second, third, first, left, maybe left field to go play. But I also had the ability to switch hit. So I offered some things, and he figured that out. As soon as that meeting was over, I jumped up, ran out, and I found our infield coordinator, a guy named Perry Hill, who now coaches for the Seattle Mariners. And I will tell you, the first time I see him every single year, I give him the biggest hug I possibly can, because it's 7 a.m. every day in spring training in 2000. We were on a backfield taking a million ground balls trying to figure out how the hell I was going to convince Felipe Alou I was good enough to play third, second, short, first, and left field. But I wanted to be in the big leagues, and I wanted to do anything I could to be there. I loved being there, even though Canada was taking half my paycheck. It was great. I loved it, and I wanted to be there, and I was going to do everything I could do to stay there. The interesting thing about that is that I was thinking about the year 2000. I wasn't thinking about the year 2012, which was the year I retired. I figured out that season that I was going to be a role player. I figured out I wasn't going to be the guy anymore. I figured out that my job was going to be showing up and going, do I hope this guy gets hurt? Do I hope he, strikes out? It was kind of a weird dynamic where I had to be the guy that was prepared to come in when a guy got hurt or didn't play well. But I kind of embraced it. And, it's not something I wanted to do, but I knew it was something that I had to embrace. And I also now I know that it was something I would become actually very proud of. And this is before the time of the Marwin Gonzaleses, the Mauricio Dubons, and the Zobrists and guys like that. I was kind of like at the infancy of what they called super utility guys. I was just a guy that could play a bunch of different positions. But I kind of formed a career around being that security blanket. So I wasn't the superstar anymore, sitting on the bench, watching a lot of baseball, and a great example of who I was and who the guys were sitting next to me on that bench was, there was a game in Montreal, Vladimir Guerrero Sr. comes up. Vlad Jr. was in the tunnels taking flips for my wife at the time. So she deserves a little bit of credit for what he's done. Vlad Guerrero gets up, hits this bomb. He was the most incredible player I've ever seen in my life. He was remarkable. Hits a home run, 30 rows deep on a pitch that was almost in the dirt. Third base coach at the time is a guy named Pete McCannon. He comes back in after that inning, and our team takes the field. Me, Ryan McGuire, Mike Mordecai, a couple other guys, we're sitting there going, waiting our turn. And Pete McCannon comes down. He goes, you, and you will never be as good as that guy. And that's where the reality kind of set in. You're like, okay. Number one, you're incredibly right. That is so true. But at the same time, how am I going to go out here and how am I going to compete? So I had to become the best version of Geoff Blum. I couldn't be Vlad Guerrero light. I couldn't be Orlando Cabrera light. I had to be me. I had to be myself and go out there and play the game. So what I did is I just got out there and worked incredibly hard. My job had turned from starting to that bench player, and the opportunities were double switches in the National League when they still had National League rules. It was pinch hitting. I would come in. My job, more or less, was to come in the ninth inning, down by a run, tie ball game, down by 2 runs, and the opposing team's closer was coming into the game. We all know what closers do. Those guys are filthy. They're probably one of the best pitchers on the team, and I would sitting there. I wasn't ice cold because I was getting ready, but I'd be sitting there, and Felipe would go, "Hey, go get him." Jimmy Williams, when I played here with the Astros, "Hey, go get him," and I'd have to go up there and try and put together an at bat, and for one at bat. My games were one at bat as opposed to other players who were getting 4 and 5. But playing the game of baseball, you're a little bit of you love pain, you love failure. So I really embraced the role. And one thing that didn't change, and I think I owe a lot of credit to this, and I don't know where it came from or why it happened. It could be a lot of arrogance. There was still that 18-year-old Geoff at Cal that was like, I'm the guy on an older team. But there was something inside of me that every single day, every time I walked into the clubhouse, whether we were home or on the road, no matter what team I was on, when you come into the clubhouse, the lineup card would be posted before you go in the locker room. And I know it's there, it's available, but every time I would literally go over there, start from the leadoff position all the way till I saw my name. Some days it was in the lineup, some days it wasn't. More often than not, it wasn't. But I never lost the heart or the mindset of being the starter. And I think that's why I became very prepared to be able to handle the certain situations that were going to be thrown at me. And it really helped me kind of succeed, because every day I showed up, I got ready as if I was going to be the starting shortstop or the starting second baseman, even the left fielder every once in a while. So it instilled that work ethic that I needed to go out there and to be able to perform and go try and beat some of those closers. But the more I played in this role, the more I understood how important I realized how important I was to this team. And it wasn't just that you see it in a manager who puts you into a certain situation that's high pressure, or with the expectation is you better perform in this one at bat because we desperately need you. I've tried everybody else on the roster kind of thing. But I kind of grew into that role, and I realized how much I meant to the organization and to the team. Because if you think about it, and you got to see it a lot with Marwin Gonzalez, even though you're not the starter, you're still a guy that can cover 5 positions. Think about the value that you bring, that adaptability, that it's coachability, it's adaptability, it's the improvisation to make things up as you're going to be able to go out there and play. You're basically filling the role of 5 people with 1 player. So that's kind of how I kind of embraced that role a little bit and became that ultimate security blanket. If something was going to hell, something was going sideways, an injury happened or panic happened, there was going to be somebody that the manager could look down the line and go, I want that guy. And I wanted to be that guy. And also what you do to your teammates. I like to think that I allowed Orlando Cabrera or Morgan Ensberg or the Adam Everetts and even the Craig Biggios and Jeff Bagwells, Lance Berkmans, to go out there and just play relentlessly and play as hard as they could, because they knew that they had somebody capable behind them to be able to support them if they couldn't go that day or if they couldn't perform, whether it be injury or something else. I'm going to tell you a real quick story, kind of a funny story, because analytics came into my career later, and I know we talk about the Astros and the analytics. There's launch angles, exit velocity, spin rates, but there was one that popped up when my career was ending. It was called WAR, and it was called wins above replacement. And as analytics are coming in, I'm all of a sudden introduced to Twitter. So I get on Twitter and I'm kind of scrolling, looking at things, and people are kind of looking at my numbers, and somehow I get wrangled into this thread where they're talking about why is Geoff Blum playing? why is he in the lineup? And one of the nerds out there goes, well, WAR wins above replacement. He doesn't have good numbers. And I'm like, dude, what the heck is WAR, man? I'm like, I got a good matchup against this guy. I've got good numbers. I can face this guy. So you kind of go through the process. And just to give you an idea, the replacement player that they're talking about, and they're trying to judge how much better a certain player is than replacement level. And what they mean by replacement level is somebody that was considered freely available. Minor leaguer, bench player, waiver claim, but it was basically someone on a team that you could acquire at minimal cost. So basically league minimum. If I have a league minimum player and I plug him in, I can throw him out there and play. And as we're going through this thread, I got probably the greatest response I've ever gotten in social media in my life, because they're ripping on me, and I'm like, listen, man, I'm like, take it easy on me. I am the R in WAR. And they lost it. And I was like, I am the replacement. And lo and behold, I was done with my career after that season. That was 2012. I was like, okay, if I've all of a sudden been labeled as R, as the replacement, I'm out of here, boys. And just to give you an idea, give you a little bit of context, when you start to look at some of the contracts that they have nowadays, and when you hear that WAR number, basically for every win above replacement is about $7 million now. So it's a pretty incredible number, and a lot of agents use that to go out there. Kyle Tucker doesn't adhere to that process. But I learned to never underestimate my importance to a ball club, as all of you should never underestimate your importance to the machine that is closing deals for Chicago title. There better be a lot of coffee out in these hallways. Some of you know what I'm talking about because we know coffee's for closers. You guys do a great job. But the interesting thing about winning games or closing deals at the level that you are is that none of this, and I mean none of this, is accomplished or finalized without every one of you having a finger on it, having an impact on this deal that is going through. The paychecks may be different. The accolades may not be given appropriately. But when you strip all of that away, in the end, you're a bigger piece of the puzzle than you think. And like was mentioned earlier by Mary, I know this for a fact. I got to sit on the other side of the table and watch this machine roll. The process was easy. It was enjoyable. The people were friendly. When I walked up in the front door, it was, "Hello, Mr. Blum, how are you? Mary is waiting in back for you." The fact that there is a stack of paper about this high that shows up every day for you guys, and you're able to get through that, figure it out, and make it make sense to me is what's impressive to me. So don't underestimate every one of you when these deals are getting done. So thank you, Mary, for having everything go well.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So don't let the role define you. Define what you are inside that role. You can define that label no matter what you want, because it's just a label, and people can label me as the replacement player. People can label you as the receptionist. They can label you as the closer, whatever it may be. But it's how you perform inside that role is what really matters. And being able to kind of be in a supporting role most of my major league career is something I took a lot of pride in. And I think the idea for me was, how do I make myself indispensable? And a lot of that wasn't necessarily on how I went out there and performed, because it was such a tough job. But at the same time, my job was to go out there and pick pitches. My job was to go out there and watch you have your at bat and maybe break it down a little bit. And if you had a question, I might be able to have an answer for you to give you the support to go out there and play. Because in the end, my ultimate goal is to go out there and win. Shane Battier had a really good quote that I'm going to screw up because it pops in my head every time I talk about the idea of winning and being a part of a team that wins, is that more often than not, the first question you get from somebody is not, what were your stats? What was your career batting average? It was, did you win a championship? Were you a part of a championship team? And once they hear, yes, I was a part of the championship team, you know what they don't ask me? What my batting average was that day or that year. So I think it's kind of cool to be a part of somebody that has as much success as you all do. And I believe, that's why I was able to play for 14 years. I don't talk about it much during the broadcast, but I played for 14 years. I played for 6 different teams. I was traded 3 times. I was fired many a time, and was still able to go out every single year and negotiate a contract. What a lot of people don't know about my career is when I was playing, I played for 14 years. I had 12 one-year contracts. My contract went from February to October. From October to February, I was left scrambling for a job. Fortunately, I was able to negotiate some contracts and be able to get out there. My agent was phenomenal. But that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. But I also think that the mindset of being a little more opportunistic and making myself available to teammates and being supportive and understanding when it was my time to shine, to go out there and play, I was able to do that. And I think that's why I was able to move into the booth and be a TV broadcaster for the Houston Astros. And I'm very happy to say, I hope you are too, I'm going into my 14th season as Astros television broadcaster. I played 14 years, and now I'm matching that in a second career. And that's something that I'm really happy about and very fortunate to have, because I was able to embrace my role, be a leader from where I was at. And even though I didn't have the status, I didn't have the popularity, although I do now, I've got a little bit. But at the time, I was able to, figure out the gratitude part of it. And my paycheck became that gratitude from and respect from peers and players and management and some of the stories that I get to hear now. And I've been able to bring a lot of those attributes to the booth and share those with Julia and TK. But the beauty of being able to be in the booth and, I still feel relatively young. I'm 52 years old, but it's kind of crazy to think that I'm able to sit where I'm at and reflect. I think that's one of the hardest things, even talking to players now, because I get a chance to talk to Altuve, George Springer, a lot of these guys who've had remarkable careers and done phenomenal things. It's hard to talk to them and have them reflect on what's currently happening, and I understand that. I had a huge issue with that, throughout the course of my career, and it wasn't until I was able to step back, call some games, watch other guys play, where I could look back and reflect on what actually happened throughout the course of my career. And I can say that I'm truly grateful for the challenges and successes that I've had, but I always try to remember the adversity I have faced was the price for becoming who I am. And that's the way you should look at adversity. It's just a part of the cost of becoming who you are and embracing that. Now I'm going to give you the trigger warning. I'm going to talk about something that's very sensitive to a lot of Houston Astro fans, because back in 2005, even though I was the role player, I was the backup, I was the security blanket, I was the guy that came in late in the game when you were desperate and nothing else was working. You said, well, we'll give that guy a shot. 2005, I was on the World Series champion team that played here in Houston, but it wasn't for the Houston Astros. I played for the Chicago White Sox when they played in the 2005 World Series. And what a lot of people will remember is the opportunity I had in Game 3 to hit that home run to beat the Astros and win Game 3 of the World Series. But what a lot of people don't talk about is what transpired to get me to that point. I was playing for the San Diego Padres at that beginning of that season. And we go through the season, I'm doing my job, I'm the ultimate security blanket, I'm covering up guys at third, second, short, playing ball, and we're in first place. I'm like, man, I'm on a first place team. I just spent 2004 with the worst team in baseball, the Tampa Bay Rays, and now I'm with the San Diego Padres, living in my house, winning first place. I'm like, okay, triplets were born that year, by the way, too. It was a big year. It was a crazy year. I've got 4 girls, yeah. You talk about pressure. Yeah. They're all in college and dating, and man, pressure. But you go back and it's July. And July, everybody knows, is when the trade deadline's coming, usually July 31st. And I'm in a position where I'm helping the Padres play first place baseball. I go down that day, play. I'm tying my shoe in San Diego, getting ready to go home that night. As I'm tying my last shoelace, I get a tap on the shoulder. And I'm like, in my head, I'm going, dude, no way this is happening right now. I look up, it's the assistant GM, Fred Uhlman, who I loved, still love, but I looked up at him and I said, you gotta be kidding me, but you can imagine what I said. You got to be kidding me, Freddie. And he goes, yeah. He goes, you got to go into Boach's office. He goes, we got to talk. And I said, all right. I said, you got to be kidding me, man. I'll go in there. The late Kevin Towers is the GM at the time. He's sitting on Bruce Bochy's couch. The door's over here, and he's sitting like this, away from me. And Bruce Bochy's got his big old head in his hands. And I get traded to the Chicago White Sox. And I wasn't paying attention. I go, Boach, where are they at? He goes, they're 15 games up in the American League Central. And I went, damn, why'd they trade for me? And I'm like, what? That's a dumb trade. They don't need me. I'm like, Boach, you need me. And the manager at the time for the White Sox is Ozzie Guillen. Crazy as you think he is, but he's one of my favorites. I love him to death. And we have a phenomenal relationship, but I played against him. He was my third base coach in Montreal for a bit. And now he was the manager for the Chicago White Sox. And Bochy looked right at me and he goes, he called and he asked for you. He goes, we're going to trade you. We feel like we can make that move. So the move was made. Obviously, history was made. And it wasn't until 10 years later that a documentary is made about this 2005 ball club. And they're interviewing all the guys. They interviewed me briefly because I was only there for 3 months. And fortunately had a big impact on their chances to win. And again, I was literally the 24th man on that 25-man roster. And I got the opportunity. A lot of it had to do with being prepared in the situation, not just physically, but mentally. Like a lot of the situation getting to that point had a lot to do with the preparation, not just in my mind, in my heart, but in the physicality of what I was going out there to do. And the calmest I've ever been was on the field in the World Series. I felt like everything that I had worked for was to be in that moment. So I really enjoyed it, but I still didn't understand why the trade was made. And finally, they're doing an interview on this documentary. Ozzie Guillen, I will say it in Ozzie Guillen words, so be prepared. He gets to the point in the interview where they're like, man, Geoff Blum, how'd you pick him to go up there and hit? And he's like, well, we had Pablo Ozuna, who was more of a speed guy. Jeff had a chance to, maybe hit one out, a little more power. So he goes, I went with him, and, it worked out. I mean, he took all the, he's like, I made the best decision that ever, I chose Jeff. I knew he was going to do it, kind of thing. And, but it led to the next question. They said it was 2005. The big hurt Frank Thomas was on the injured list, which was a huge, MVP all-star guy in their lineup that they lost. But the reporter who was doing the documentary said, why? Why that guy? Why Geoff Blum? And they proceeded to go, maybe a 250 average career, not a lot of, some home runs, enough power to maybe say you could hit one. Plays 6 different positions, and maybe played every other day, didn't play a lot. And Ozzie Guillen goes, I know, I had him in Montreal. He goes, I liked him. He was a good guy. I knew he could cover. Joe Creedy at third base had a bad back. He goes, he was my insurance clause in case Joe went down. Paul Konerko was having some knee issues at first base. He goes, I knew I could put Jeff over there if I had to and pick up Konerko on days he needed off. And he goes, but the one thing is he goes, I played against the guy. I was his third base coach. And he goes, the biggest thing for me is that I had a team that was 15 games up in the American League Central. I knew we had something special going on here. And the best compliment I've ever been paid in my life was when he said this. He looked at that reporter and he goes, the reason I traded for this guy, because I knew he wasn't going to fuck up my clubhouse. And I was like, damn. I'm like, I told him afterwards, I go, dude, thanks, man. I'm like, I know we go out there and perform, but the fact that you thought I could come into a championship team situation and not screw things up. And by screwing things up, it means making it about me. It means going, hey, when am I playing? Hey, how come I didn't hit there? How come he's playing second base and I'm not? He knew I would come in and mix in and play well. And fortunately, everything worked out, and I did end up getting a ring that season. But I just want to finish real quick. I know I've been up here for a while, blabbing. I've had a blast. You guys have been great. But I get asked advice a lot within the game. And I vividly remember that the first time I was asked this, I was rehabbing a broken hand. I think it was either knee surgery or a broken hand. My 2 years in Arizona, I fell apart. But I'm rehabbing. And my first stop was in the Arizona League with a bunch of 18-year-old, 16-year-old Latin American kids who just came over and 18-year-old high school players. And it is June in Arizona, Scottsdale. It's 110 degrees, and I'm out there. I roll out there, sweating my brains out, and we're playing. And these guys were great. And God bless them for asking the questions, because that's another thing that I think is underrated, is asking the question. I tell my daughters all the time, I go, ask as many questions, ask for the world. I go, the worst thing they're going to say is no. Then what? Then you figure out a different option. You figure out a different way to get the answer you want. But they asked me, hey, you've been to the big leagues. You played. You won a World Series. You've done this. What advice do you have for me? And I said, I kept it simple. And then spur of the moment, I said, work hard, play harder. Third, don't piss anybody off. I'm like, dude, you might be looking for a job someday. And it was kind of interesting. My daughters were on an A&M visit before they chose to go to Arkansas and LSU. And one of the kids that was taking us around was like, hey, this is the business school. He goes, it's kind of interesting. You walk through here, that person sitting at that bench over there might be your boss. You got to be nice to everybody. But from the locker room to the boardroom and even to home, all of this formula doesn't change for me. And the first is outwork the competition, no matter what it is. Be prepared. That's one thing that I preach constantly to these guys, and something I kind of expanded on with these young men when they were coming up in Arizona. I'm like, be prepared. Don't ever show up unprepared, because you're going to have your opportunity. Are you going to be ready for that opportunity no matter what it is? Whether it's just to take a piece of paper next door or to actually fill this thing out and make sure the wording is right so the contract goes through. Never stop learning kind of falls into that category for me. And knowledge is the foundation of not panicking. I like music, and I'm going to refer to one of my favorite bands of all time because there's a famous lyricist. His name's Pete Loeffler, and he's the lead singer of Chevelle. And I have used this quote more than he will ever know. And I've used it on broadcasts if you listen a lot. And the quote is, "Panic makes remorse." The last thing we want to do is fall victim to remorse and regret. So be prepared, don't panic. If you're knowledgeable and prepared, you won't panic. So work relentlessly. And this is probably really important too. Talent alone does not win championships or close those deals. The hard work with the talent finishes those things off. Play harder. I was trying to think about this. What does this mean to y'all in the boardroom, in the offices? I think it should mean enjoy the grind. Enjoy, flipping through the papers. Enjoy trying to find the best rates. Enjoy having those people in there and signing those deals and doing that. Because if you embrace those moments of pressure and work, it makes the joy, and the joy fuels the consistency under certain pressures. And that's kind of the fun, is having the enjoyment of working under that pressure. And the don't piss me off, man, that's the easiest one on here. It's the hardest one on here also, because you've got to give that respect. I know that you're not going to click with everybody or be the best of friends, but at the same time, you've got to give that respect. That's how you develop cultures. That's how you develop atmospheres, and that's how you develop a very good work ethic. And one thing that kind of jumped to me is both in sports and in leadership, your reputation is going to walk into that room before you do. And if you have that reputation of rubbing people the wrong way, pissing the wrong people off, that's going to get in there before you do, and they're going to already have a preconceived notion of what's going to go on. And most importantly, careers are built on performances, but legacies are built on careers or on character. So remember that. And that character could be good or bad. So what are you building your legacy on? And I can't thank you enough for having the opportunity to stand up there. Yeah, thank you. Now, who wants a picture?